I love that we've got all different ages in the group, and we've got non-binary, we've got elderly gay men, we've got a lovely mix, trans people. So there's this idea.
Sorry to cut you off, but like
You did
as you
cut me
say,
off.
like I did cut you off, but you know,
It did. It's been
deal with
noted.
it. This is relational contact.
All right.
How is that
go for it.
impacting you?
That's stressing me out, baby.
We record this podcast on Gadigal land in Sydney and pay our respects to all First Nations elders, healers, and storytellers. As therapists, we recognise the wisdom that lives in land, body, and spirit, as well as the queerness that runs through nature's veins. This always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Welcome to Gestalt Me Gently. I'm Dabaco Dolderson. I am here with my queer compadre, Matthew Bergen. Matt, how are you arriving to our episode today?
I'm arriving, excited, and it's good to be back here with you and continuing the flow of our series, Gestalt Me Gently series. So got a nice cup of tea here to my right, feeling kind of settling in my body as we speak. So how are you arriving, Dabaco?
I love to hear that arrival. I am very happily cozy inside after embracing the rain this morning. The Sydney winter wetness just seems to be continuing, and I'm surrendering. As a stubborn man on a motorbike, I am really just allowing the moisture to soak into my boots and keeping a smile on my face.
I see you in your wet weather gear. It's like, wow, all those layers and all that kind of PVC.
So many layers, and I peel back the layers and I feel my heart, and I'm here with you in this moment, very excited to get high with you.
And I like that.
What kind of high are we going to get? We're going to get contact high this episode.
Baby. Yeah,
so for those that might be following our journey on social media or wherever you might be in community, Matt and I have been experimenting with a new offering called Contact High. Matt, I'm wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit about the origin story, because I think you were the one, Matt, that planted the seed of doing a group. I mean, we have done many a collaboration in the past, but this is our newest offering. How would you describe Contact High for those that haven't heard of it yet?
Yeah, no, thank you. I was looking at, ways that queer people connect and gather. And, a lot of it to me is around alcohol, bars, etc. And as a sober person, I'm not often drawn to those venues for that reason. And also I was kind of like, the opportunity to bring queer people together in a space that's not stimulant-based, that's purely relational-based. And then we had the opening of the new Pride Centre here in Newtown. And I'm familiar with the Rainbow Room, having ran activities there before. So it was kind of like just adding up, okay, well, we've got a space, that's a big win. And then how can we bring queer people together and sit in a relational capacity and share story and share ways in which we can identify, what's going on for us in our lived realities and our lived experience. So that was kind of the approach that I came to you with. And, I was like, Dee, would you be interested in, sitting with group and seeing, ways that we can hold and work with, our skills. So, yeah.
And, sometimes putting workshops and offerings out to the world, I'm sure you can relate to this as well. Sometimes it's a hard slog, doing the marketing, talking about it again and again, trying to get people to take the step of trust and commitment. But Contact High, at least from my experience, it just seemed to flow. We put a couple of ads out there and you put some posters out on the street. Pride Centre was generous enough to put some promo on their screens, but there's 14 of us in this first round of Contact High, which exceeded our kind of goal of a group of 10. So, it really feels affirming that this landed in community and people were curious about it. Yeah, I'm
Mm.
wondering how you feel about our first round now that we're at week 4 of our 6-week program. Like, can you share a bit
Yeah.
of what your experience has been like co-facilitating this with me?
Yeah, well, it was wonderful. Thanks, stepping in and hearing from the group that people were hungry for a group like this. Like they were kind of saying, wow, when they saw it and read the website and the activities that were listed on the website from a weekly perspective, they were kind of like, wow, we're really kind of been looking for something like this. So it's like something in the zeitgeist was saying to them, this is for you. And so, yeah, in that sense, I got a bit excited thinking, oh, okay, this is kind of taking care of itself in a way, because it is important in a way, like I spoke to, that's in an environment that's safe. They've got a safe container. We have group agreements around how we keep the group safe and protected, and ways in which that we can come together that might be unique for some people. Yeah, how it's been for me. Yeah, moving forward, it's been exciting and challenging, and that's the ingredient that I would hope for. It's been empowering to put ideas into the group and let the group kind of work those ideas, and also sit in that space where, as facilitators, we're not sowing seeds. We're just letting the group emerge and speak to what's current, what's rising for the group's needs on the day. So that's that beauty of, I guess, for me, is sitting in some of that Gestalt training, where it's like, well, what's emergent is what's powerful in that moment of the here and now.
Yes, and as
Mm.
you name the here and now, this group is very Gestalt, both of us being queer affirming Gestalt psychotherapists. We really wanted to create a space that honors, like you said, what is alive, what is emergent, what's going on in the here and now, and give each of us as participants that co-create the group, what's happening for us in this moment, how are we impacting one another. And I think, early on in this journey, one of the highlights from like a thematic perspective has been this idea of connecting in with the queer heart. And I feel like that really moved me as we all connected in with this idea that holds us together, that is that curious, agitating, but also really sensitive core as queer folk, that heart that radiates. And it also reminds me of the heart that we have on the poster
Mm.
it feels very serendipitous, like it was meant to be, the heart, the queer
Mm.
heart. And one of the participants has a beautiful tendency towards weaving in some quotes and poetry. And there was a Rumi quote that they shared that I want to share with you and our listeners, because it really just hit me at the right time. And the quote says, "Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it."
Mm. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
impactful.
curious what you're noticing
Could
as
you read
I
it
read
again?
that.
Could you? Yeah, could you read it
Sure,
again?
let's
Thanks.
let those words really
Yeah.
land.
Yeah, thanks.
Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it says to me like the work is like undoing those veils, those restrictive, almost like that birdcage metaphor of like, how do you remove the metal around you to allow the love to occur? Because to me, it's kind of saying the love's always there. It's just the story that I'm carrying around, how I let the love in or out. Um, and
Mm.
and and it's kind of a bit of a, for me, it's a little bit of a reminder of like, soften up, bitch. Like, there's something in me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
like
soften up, but also perhaps for me, it's like confront the fear or even the terror that can show up when there is love wanting to flow.
mm,
I notice there's protective mechanisms and parts of me that are like,
yeah.
oh, I don't know if I can handle that much love,
Mm,
or what would it be to fully surrender into this loving contact and connection with someone? Like, it can be quite confronting. And, it also reminds me of this kind of, well, it's a common phenomena, particularly in the gay community, where, there's this culture of hooking up, using apps like Grindr, and like seeking that intense intimacy. And then immediately after that has been attained, there's a withdrawal, there's a distance, there's a ghosting. And, it's almost like, I want the contact, but to stay in that contact is too much. Like, I've had the physical intimacy. I don't think the emotional intimacy is something that I want to explore. That might not feel secure or safe or protected for my heart. So, there's many different ways that I can interpret that quote. But when it was shared in our group, it was just, oof, it hit that deep, deep part of me and got me really curious about, okay, what are still some of those obstacles? Or you mentioned the birdcage metaphor. What are still some of those bars and cages that I hold on to keep myself, quote unquote, safe? Could you elaborate on the birdcage metaphor? Because that's something that really blossomed in our last session on Monday night. How would you describe the birdcage?
Yeah. It was around, it arose. Well, it came from literally on a metaphor that was there on, well, it's a metaphor that we're speaking to, but it was literally in the room as a piece of fabric on the floor in our mandala. And it was images of fabric that had beautiful cages, and inside were some cage doors that were open and birds were flying out, and then other cages were closed. So that was the design on the piece of fabric. And yeah, it was interesting how that spoke to the participants in the room, and then that became a metaphor that we bounced off. And it came out of, there's lots of different narratives around what's it like to let the parts of that cage open so that we can step into the world as a queer person and have that opportunity to fly around and experience the world, but also to have the safety of coming back to the cage if that's desired. And then there were some similarities there that we spoke to with Rosh in the bucket episode that we did, Crabs in the Bucket, if that's rings a bell. I think
episode 2, Rochelle was talking about this idea of crabs having their bucket, their safe space, but then also being able to go out onto the sand, into the waters, into the rock pools, exploring. I loved that metaphor that Rosh used. And, for those that haven't listened to that episode, go back to episode 2 and listen to that. I think it's even the title of the podcast is about the crabs and the buckets, so it's easy to find. And yeah, I think it's one of my favorite episodes that we've done so far.
Oh, sweet. That's lovely to hear. They're all favorites to me. I just
of course you would say that, teacher's pet.
I'm going to go back to the queer heart this discussion, because to me that came about like just as a way in which I kind of see the world. And it's like, I love that queerness can operate outside of heteronormativity, from a place where it can be challenging to the paradigms such as heteronormativity, but it also has the way to kind of include, and it can include those people that are different and on the outskirts of society. And that's where, we've got some wonderful heterosexual people in the group. They identify as heterosexual, but they have queer desire, and
they're in a poly dynamic. They're queer relating, even though they're a male-female partnership.
That's right. And so I don't feel like that in Contact High that there's an exclusive, that it's just about sexuality and desire. It's and gender. It's the opportunity for us all there to step into this belonging, this new belonging, and for us to be able to speak to what it feels like to kind of oscillate outside of the confines of heteronormativity. Not to say that heteronormativity is something we're going to dismiss, but it's something, from a queer perspective, that we can really kind of challenge and move forward into a new thinking and a new way of being. And that to me is really exciting from a queer heart, because it says that there's inclusion rather than exclusion.
Yeah, I love that you brought that in, because it really is a lovely permission piece for people that might be listening and wondering, "Ooh, am I queer enough? You know, maybe I'm in a optically hetero partnership. Is that going to be weird or judged in the group?" And it's lovely that one of the first topics actually that we started to unpack in the group is, am I queer enough for this space, and how each of us kind of can journey those kinds of questions as a queer person. Am I actually queer enough for this queer space? And it was lovely, myself included. I relate to those questions as a pansexual man that does connect with men, women, non-binary folk. It because sometimes if I'm connecting with a woman, it's optically like a very hetero partnership. And so it was lovely to hear everyone's different take on grappling with that question that can come up in different moments and different situations. And by each of us sharing our own take on that, and there was a real sense of community in the questioning, in the vulnerability of that question, that felt like a really welcoming introduction for the group.
Yeah. And I loved that we've got all different ages in the group, and we've got non-binary, we've got elderly gay men, we've got a lovely mix, trans people. So there's this idea.
Sorry to cut you off, but like,
you
as
did
you
cut
say,
me off.
like, I did cut you off, but
It did. It's been
deal with
noted.
it. This is relational contact.
All right,
how is that
go for it.
impacting you?
It's stressing me out, baby. I'm good.
I want to prompt you to talk a little bit about like eldership as well, because that's something that has come up in the group. You mentioned the age diversity and some older folk, and even, I don't know, all of us have been talking about how we are all on a path to eldership. Are you able to speak a little bit about what your take has been on that as a theme in the group, queer eldership?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before I was rudely cut off, I was speaking to that. Yes, there's this mixed group, and I couldn't help but feel like, as an elderly gay man who saw and experienced the struggle around what was once called the lesbian and gay movement. And, I can remember a time when the gay men didn't interact with the gay women or the lesbians. Yeah. So I can kind of, in my mapping, in my lived experience, see the political polemics that have gone on over time. So for me, I just wanted to say it's really interesting in the room. And then now, with trans people in the room as well, it's like, there's the struggle for me. That's where my queerness is aligned with, trans rights and the trans struggle. So I guess that's that kind of way in which I just wanted to speak to that as a queer elder that's got his L plates on, mind you. I'm only 60. I'm not going to say that I'm above L plates. I love the fact that, one of the participants brought up that idea is like, one day they will be an elder, and that opportunity to sit with and hold, the emerging diversity that's coming through. And so for me, I can speak from my experience, but I get a bit excited around speaking my lived experience and kind of what I've seen. So it gives me some support, and it also gives me some fire, because I don't want history to repeat itself, of the crappy stuff, the shitty stuff, like what religion's done to queerness, and what's going on with hate and hate speech. So I'm very impacted by that, is what I'm saying. So as an elder and emerging elders in the room, there's a respect, I think, to some of that holding. It's vice versa. The respect goes both ways, which is what I'm noticing, which is really lovely. The younger people in the room are listening and allowing space, and the elders in the room are listening and allowing space for the other generations that are coming through. So yeah, does that land for you, Dabaco?
Yeah, I love that you share about the eldership, Matt. I feel really, touched in a sense of pride as you talk about your L plates going into queer eldership. There's a lot of excitement as well for that unfolding chapter of your journey, which I get to follow alongside of. And I also, as you were sharing, I reflected on how we've been evolving as facilitators through the 6 weeks. Well, now that we're at week 4 and we've been becoming more active and directive and inviting participants that might find it a little bit more difficult to speak to kind of step in more and meet that edge. And also for those that have been finding it a lot easier to jump in and share their resonances, to also ease off a little bit and experiment with the dynamics. And so I say that because maybe someone's listening and they're thinking, oh, I don't know if this group is for me. I find it really difficult to speak in group settings. And for those kind of people, like, this is the perfect space to experiment with that and feel the support and the protection of a really respectful group, and how a group can also co-regulate a nervous moment for someone or a nervous experience, and really relying on both you and I to help support them through that process. There's already been some really lovely moments that I've witnessed of people meeting those edges and noticing how it feels to say the difficult thing, or maybe the thing that brings up some shame, and feel how the group can hold that. And yes, we can wax lyrically about how great our work and our group is, but I wanted to share a little voice recording, a little note from one of the participants that have been journeying with us in Contact High. So I'm going to play that now. It's just 30 seconds for us to have a bit of a
lovely.
listen to.
I love it. Surprise.
Contact High has been a really good experience for me so far, connecting in with other queer people and just talking about things that are going on for us in a safe, inclusive environment, sharing our stories and our learnings and processing them together. It's been an absolute joy.
So a big thank you to that participant
Yes.
for sharing a bit of their experience and the joy of going on the journey with us.
Yeah.
How was it to hear that?
It was really lovely. Yeah, really lovely. And I think that was a nice little way in which they summarized their experience, and I could sense their tiredness at the end of a long day, but it was nice to kind of hear a participant's experience of what their journey's been like. So yeah, great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I think this could be a nice opportunity to talk about what Contact High is moving into from here. We're in the final couple of weeks of this first round, but we already have a second round in the works. So if you are curious about experiencing Contact High, you don't need to wait very long. We're actually going to start our second round on the 15th of September, Monday the 15th of September, and I'm going to put a link in the show notes here, so click that link and you can read up a bit more about Contact High. It runs for 6 weeks up until the 20th of October. That round will take us up to. But we've also been getting some great feedback from participants in this first round, and I get a sense that they're wanting more as well. Matt, maybe you can tell us a few little ideas that have been percolating for you about what could come in the future after these next rounds.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, excited about this next group that we're going to start up. But we've also had conversations around what's kind of how the group's organizing itself. As people are saying, can this be an 8-week term, or what about retreats and stuff like that? So sowing a few ideas. We're looking at potentially running a 1-day queer spirit, contact high gathering, where for a day we can get together and continue the work. So almost like an alumni, where people have done a 6-week term can start to participate in other activities that we start to run and organize. And the idea of perhaps a 2-day retreat somewhere in the countryside, working as group and bringing in other elements, other modalities that can support this work that we're doing. Myself and Dabaco have ran retreats before called Queer Spirit events and workshops here in Sydney. We've kind of had a good go at running retreats, which we loved. There's the idea that Contact High can create a body of people that want to continue learning with us or participating with us.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that idea of cultivating community, because after journeying for 6 weeks with a group of people, I'm also noticing that longing of, okay, how can this continue? We've really created some solid ground underneath us. It would be a shame for that to just dissipate. And of course, we all go off and we share our kind of learnings and experience, and that continues to emanate in our social networks. But to be able to come back, like you say, and do like a day immersion with some Contact High alumni and just keep on checking in with each other and keeping things relational feels like a really nourishing, rewarding thing to do. So I'm excited about where this is going to take us.
Cool. Absolutely. I'm excited too. And Dee, while we're here, I love that we're kind of having little meetings on the fly here in the podcast. But what I'm also thinking that I want to address is that we have the wonderful Gina O'Neill coming in for our next Gestalt Me Gently interview. So I just wanted to speak to that so that the listeners know that we haven't abandoned them. There's more in the pipeline.
There is more on the pipeline. We're going to have a beautiful chat with Gina in the coming weeks, which might be one of the final episodes of this first season of Gestalt Me Gently, but things are still forming around, I think we might do one more episode as well, just reflecting on some of the highlights of this season thus far. That would be a nice way to round things out.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gina's a wonderful ecotherapist from New Zealand, lives in Australia. And a wonderful invitation to have them come on board and share their experiences with ecotherapy and Gestalt therapy.
Yeah, looking forward to that chat. Any final words before we bring our Gestalt Me Gently journey to a close for this episode?
Come on board, peeps. Come on board.
Take the leap of faith. Join us in the Chiffon Network and get high in Contact High. I think that's all we need to say. Trust your intuition and you will be rewarded with Contact High.
Said so effortlessly. Thank you, dude.
All right. Sending lots of love to you, Matt, and everyone listening and watching. Mwah. Look after yourselves.
Kisses.
Go gently. Until next time. Bye.